The voice in the wreckage, the red sun was low in the sky when Ethan stopped his rover. The metal desert of planet Virion stretched far in every direction, quiet, dead, and filled with junk. Old ships, broken machines, and rusted weapons lay in piles forgotten by time. Ethan was here for scrap. He fixed things, sold parts, and barely made enough to survive. But this place was dangerous. Creatures hid under wrecks. Bandits hunted lonely travelers. Still, he needed fuel, and there was no other choice. He parked near a large pile of ship debris. As he stepped out, the wind blew sand into his eyes. Ethan pulled his scarf up and walked carefully, holding his toolkit. Then, he froze. He heard something, a voice. Weak, faint, almost like a whisper. Help. Ethan looked around. No one was there. He waited. Then again, the same voice. Please. It was coming from under a pile of metal. Ethan dropped his bag and ran forward. He moved a broken wing, a cracked pipe, and a burned panel. The voice was clearer now, but shaking. It sounded like a woman. Please. My children. Ethan's hands worked faster. He didn't stop. Soon he found a small hole between the scrap. He looked inside, and what he saw made his heart drop. A pair of large, glowing eyes stared back at him. Alien, wide, full of fear. The woman's face was covered in dust. Her lips were dry. Her skin was thin, and strange markings were carved into her arms, some old, some fresh. Behind her, two small figures were huddled close together. Children, skinny, silent. One held a cloth doll made from wires and rags. Ethan crouched low. Can you move? The woman shook her head. They will find us. They always find us. Who? Ethan asked. She didn't answer. Her breathing was fast. Ethan reached into his bag and pulled out a water pouch. He offered it through the hole. She looked at it with disbelief, then carefully took it and helped her children drink first. Then she drank a small sip herself. Thank you, she whispered. Ethan stood. He began pulling more metal aside, opening a path. The structure creaked but held. Finally, after many minutes, he reached them. She was too weak to walk. Her legs were swollen. One child had a limp. The other one looked sick. Come, Ethan said. I'll take you to my shelter. She didn't move. I'm not here to hurt you, he said. But if we stay here, we'll all be dead by morning. The woman looked at her children. They nodded slowly. Together, Ethan helped them out one by one. The children were light like feathers. She was barely heavier. He placed them in the rover and covered them with a warm blanket. The drive back was silent. The woman didn't ask questions. She just held her children close. Ethan kept looking at her through the mirror. She looked tired, broken. But her eyes stayed sharp, watchful, like she had seen too much. When they reached his shelter, a small home made of old ship parts and solar panels, Ethan helped her inside. He gave the children food, warm soup made from plants. They ate fast, too fast. The woman sat quietly. She only ate after they finished. Ethan noticed she gave the last bite of her portion to her youngest child. Do you have a name? He asked, gently. She hesitated, then said, Neil. I'm Ethan, he replied. She gave a small nod. He wanted to ask more, but her eyes closed. She had passed out. He carried her to the sleeping mat and laid her down. The children watched him. They didn't speak, but their eyes followed every move. He smiled at them. The older one hugged the younger tightly. Ethan sat near the fire and stared into the flames. Questions swirled in his head. Who was she? Where had she come from? Why was she hiding in a pile of wreckage with her children? And who was hunting her? That night, Ethan didn't sleep much, but he made a decision. No matter who Narelle was or what trouble she carried, he wasn't going to leave her to die. Not here. Not on his watch. The woman who wouldn't speak. Morning came slow. The red sun rose behind the rocky hills, casting long shadows over Ethan's small shelter. The wind outside blew dust against the metal walls. Inside, it was quiet. Too quiet. Ethan poured some hot broth into a bowl. He placed it near the sleeping mat where the alien woman Nirel lay. Her children were still asleep, curled together like frightened animals. She opened her eyes but didn't speak. Not a single word. "You need to eat," Ethan said softly. She sat up slowly. Her face was pale. Her hands shook as she held the bowl. She sipped the broth carefully but didn't meet his eyes. "Your children, they're safe here," Ethan added, trying to sound calm. Still, no reply. Only silence. Later that morning, the children woke up. The older one, maybe 6 years old, looked around with big golden eyes. He flinched when he saw Ethan, then hid behind his mother. The younger one was too weak to stand. Nirel pulled him into her lap, wrapping him with part of the blanket. Ethan sighed. "Do you understand me?" he asked. Nirel gave the smallest nod. "Then tell me, why were you in that wreckage?" She looked at him. Her eyes were cold, hard, but her lips didn't move. "Fine," Ethan said, standing. "You don't have to trust me. But if someone's after you, I need to know what kind of danger you've brought here." Her fingers clutched the blanket tighter. The room stayed quiet. Ethan walked outside and kicked at the dust. He wasn't angry, but confused. Why save her if she wouldn't even talk? He sat on an old crate and looked at the sky. The stars were still visible. Virion had 2 moons. Both were out this morning, bad omen, some said. Suddenly he heard something from inside. A sound like coughing. He ran back in. The little boy was shaking. His face was pale. His lips were blue. Nirel was panicking. She pressed her hand on his chest and began humming softly in her alien language, slow and sad. Ethan grabbed his medkit. "Let me help." She didn't stop him this time. He gave the boy a warm liquid used to treat fever and used a small heater to raise the temperature around him. Slowly, the boy's breathing calmed. The color returned to his face. Nirel looked at Ethan. "And for the first time," she whispered, "you saved him." Ethan didn't answer. He just nodded. Hours passed. The children rested again. Nirel cleaned their faces with a cloth. She moved like a mother who had done this many times, alone. Ethan brought some old clothes, clean water, and more food. He placed them near her without speaking. Later that night, while Ethan sat by the small fire outside the shelter, Nirel stepped out. She walked slowly. The cold wind caught her thin dress and her hair moved like threads of silver. She sat near him, but not too close. "I'm sorry," she said. Ethan turned to her. "For what?" "For not talking, for not trusting. I've seen too many faces. All of them kind at first, but cruel later." Ethan stayed silent. "I had a mate once," she whispered. "He sold me." Ethan looked at her, shocked. "He sold me for credits," she continued. "He said I was too weak, useless. He kept the children and until they became a burden. Then he left us in the junk fields." Ethan felt a lump in his throat. "I hid for days. Dug myself under metal. I thought, maybe it's better to die under trash than beg again." She paused. "But then you came." Ethan didn't know what to say. "I don't want your pity," she added. "Just time." "I don't pity you," he said quietly. "But no one should die in a pile of garbage." Nirel looked at the fire. Her face was calm, but her hands were clenched. "I don't expect to stay here long," she said. "Just until the boy heals. You're welcome to stay as long as you need," Ethan replied. She looked at him, surprised. "I don't ask where you're from, but I won't let children suffer if I can help it." She gave a weak smile. The first one he had seen. Then she whispered, "Thank you, Ethan." He nodded. That night, as the wind howled outside, something had changed. She still didn't trust him completely. But for the first time in a long while, Neril didn't feel alone, and Ethan didn't feel empty. Burned papers, hidden truths days passed. The shelter was quiet, but the air felt heavy, like secrets were hiding in the walls. Neril spoke more now, but only a few words at a time. She still kept her distance from Ethan. The children had started, smiling, just a little. The younger one could now sit up without coughing. Ethan had fixed a broken toy drone and gave it to the older child. The boy hugged it like treasure. One afternoon, while Neril and the children rested inside, Ethan worked on repairing his water pump outside the shelter. A sudden gust of wind pushed over a pile of old parts. Among the falling junk, something small and shiny dropped out, an object half melted and covered in dirt. Ethan picked it up. It looked like an old ID chip. Its outer case was cracked and burnt, but the center glowed faintly. He wiped it clean and turned it over. There were strange markings on it, royal-looking symbols. Ethan frowned. He had seen those symbols before, on an alien noble house crest. But what was a royal chip doing with a woman who slept in garbage? He brought it inside and placed it on the table. Neril saw it, and her face went pale. "Where did you find that?" she asked in a whisper. "It was inside your old clothes, in the folds of the fabric. You didn't know?" Her hands trembled. She reached for it but stopped halfway. "Thought it was gone. I burned everything," she muttered. Ethan looked at her closely. "What is it, Neril? Who are you really?" She sat down slowly. "I was someone before I became just a burden." "Were you a noble?" She didn't reply. Ethan placed the chip in his scanner. The screen blinked a few times, then lines of alien text appeared. He tapped through the data, and suddenly, his eyes widened. The file showed a picture of a younger Neril. She was dressed in royal clothing, standing beside an older man. A large building stood behind them, a palace. Name: Neril of House Kyle Thari. Status: declared dead, suspected flight from royal bonding. Warning: do not shelter. High-value target. Ethan looked up. "They think you're dead." Neril nodded. "I was supposed to marry someone powerful, a leader of another clan. I refused, so they gave me to him anyway." She looked away. "I ran before the ceremony. I took my children and vanished. My family erased me, said I dishonored them." Ethan stared at the screen. "They put a price on your head." Neril touched her son's hair gently. "They want my children gone. If there's no heir, there's no scandal." Ethan's blood boiled. "That's sick." "It's tradition," she whispered bitterly. "To them, I'm already dead. And my children are shadows." Ethan walked over to the window and looked outside. The sun was setting again. The desert wind had picked up. Dust swirled across the plain. "Someone might come looking if they track this chip," he said. "I thought I destroyed it," she said. "I burned my gown, I threw away everything, but I couldn't burn the chip, I hid it instead. And now it's been found." They both went quiet. Suddenly the toy drone started to beep. The older child dropped it and backed away. The light on it was blinking. Something wasn't right. Ethan picked it up. His face turned serious. "They've activated a scan grid," he said. "This drone caught it. A patrol ship flew overhead. Someone's looking for something." Neril stood. Her voice was sharp now. "They found the signal." Ethan didn't ask how. He moved quickly. "We have to cover the shelter. No light, no sound. Hide everything." He threw a blanket over the fire. Neril gathered the children in a corner. Ethan used metal plates to block the windows. He turned off the outside generator. The entire shelter went dark. Then, silence. Minutes passed. Then a low hum began in the distance, a ship, getting closer. Neril held her breath. Ethan reached for his old rifle. "I won't let them take you," he said quietly. She looked at him. For the first time, her eyes didn't show fear. They showed something else. Trust. The ship flew overhead. Lights scanned the ground, sweeping side to side. But then, it passed. Silence returned. They all stayed still for another hour, just in case. Then Ethan turned toward her. "We need to plan." Narelle nodded. "Because next time," he said, "they'll come on foot." And Narelle replied with one word, her voice calm and steady. "Then we fight, children of the exiled queen." The next morning, Ethan stared at the scanner. The patrol ship hadn't returned, but the signal had changed. Someone had dropped a small ground beacon near the rocks, stealth type, hard to detect. That meant one thing. We were marking the location. Narelle stood at the door of the shelter, her arms crossed tightly around her. She watched her children sleep. The little one still wheezed in his sleep. The older one now clung to Ethan's fixed drone like a lifeline. "They're coming," Ethan said. Narelle nodded. "They will not stop." Ethan stepped closer. "We need to go off-grid. Disappear completely." "I've done that before," Narelle whispered. "They still found me." "You didn't have me last time," Ethan replied. "And now you do." She looked up at him. Slowly, she said, "You don't know who I really am. Then tell me." She walked back inside the shelter and opened a small pouch she had hidden in the wall. Inside were two tiny glowing crystals, strange, warm, and softly pulsing. She handed them to Ethan. "These are heartstones," she explained. "Royal bloodlines are born with them. They prove who we are." Ethan looked at the crystals in his hand. "These are your children's?" Narelle nodded. "My family used to protect the eastern colonies. House Kelthari. I was born a princess. But when I refused the political marriage, they stripped my name and branded me traitor." She rolled up her sleeve and showed him a faded scar burned into her skin, an old royal symbol crossed through by fire. "They told the galaxy I died in a crash, but really, they left me in the wild with nothing. I was pregnant with my second child. They said I would not survive the desert." Ethan stood still. "But you did." "I crawled, for days. I ate sandweed and drank dew, and I made a promise. If I ever lived long enough to hear my children laugh again, I would never stop fighting for them." She looked over at the children. "They are the last of my blood. If they die, my people will lose their right to the throne forever." Ethan clenched his jaw. "So this is not just about revenge. It's about power. It's about fear," she said. "They fear my children even more than they feared me." Ethan put the crystals down. "We need to make this place stronger. Traps, alarms, hidden exits." Narelle looked at him and asked softly, "Why are you helping me, Ethan? This isn't your fight." Ethan turned toward her. His eyes burned with something deep. "Because I've seen enough people left behind. Enough people thrown away. You're not garbage, and your kids deserve to live." She swallowed hard. "You could walk away. Pretend you never found us." "I could," he said. "But I won't." That afternoon, they began building. Ethan rigged motion sensors using parts from old drones. He buried tripwires in the sand. Narelle, though weak, helped mark escape routes. She taught Ethan how to speak simple commands in her language, just in case he had to calm the children without her. They worked like a team. At night, while the children slept, Narelle sat beside Ethan under the stars. "They used to call me the Star Daughter," she said. "That's a nice name." It was a lie. I wasn't a daughter to them. I was just a symbol, a tool. Ethan looked at her. "Then let me say something true. You're not a symbol to your kids. They look at you like you're their whole world." Narelle's lips trembled. "I forgot what it felt like," she whispered. "What?" "To be seen." She turned her face toward the stars again. Ethan didn't say anything. The fire crackled quietly. Then suddenly the drone alarm buzzed. Ethan stood up fast. "They're here." He checked the scanner. 2 figures moving fast. Close. Narelle grabbed the crystals and hid them in the floor. Ethan whispered, "Take the children to the back tunnel. I'll buy time." She grabbed his hand. No, don't face them alone. He stared into her eyes. I won't let them hurt your children. She held his hand tighter, then let go. As she vanished into the tunnel with her sons, Ethan stood at the door with his old rifle. The red sun dipped low again, casting long shadows, and in the distance 2 dark shapes moved closer. They didn't know who they were dealing with this time. The children of the exiled queen had someone to fight for them. The offer of the desperate smoke rose from the edge of the hill. The ground was scattered with metal shards, footprints, and scorched sand. The trap Ethan had set worked, but just barely. One of the attackers was wounded and fled. The other didn't survive. Ethan limped back to the shelter with a bleeding cut on his shoulder. He was tired, sore, and covered in dust. His old rifle was cracked. His eyes stung with sweat. Narelle met him at the door. Her face was pale, her hands shaking, but she didn't cry. Instead, she helped him inside. You need stitches, she said, softly. I've had worse, Ethan grunted, but I'll take the help. She carefully cleaned his wound and began to wrap the bandage. Her touch was gentle, but her eyes were distant. They'll send more, she whispered. Ethan nodded. Next ones won't be so careless. She sat beside him quietly. The shelter was silent except for the sound of the wind outside. The children were asleep, but Ethan could still hear the older one coughing in his sleep. Then, Neril said something that made Ethan sit up straighter. If I give you my bond, no one can take me or my children, not legally, not by force. Ethan blinked. Your what? My bond, she said again, her voice slow and steady. It's a sacred ritual among my people. Once I bond to someone, they become part of my bloodline. Under human alien law, you would become their guardian, their protector. My mate. Ethan stared at her, stunned. You mean, you want to marry me? She shook her head. This isn't about love. It's about survival. Ethan leaned back and rubbed his face. You're asking me to become their father, your husband, just like that? I'm not asking for romance, she said quickly. I'm offering you protection too. If they attack you now, you're just a man who helped a fugitive. But if we bond, they'll need approval from both governments to touch you. Ethan looked down at his worn hands. I'm just a mechanic, Neril. I fix broken junk. I sleep under metal roofs and drink recycled water. I'm not royalty. You're more than that, she said. You gave food to strangers, you protected us, you stayed. He didn't reply. She moved closer, slowly, nervously. You said you wouldn't let them hurt my children. I believe you. But you need protection too. Ethan looked into her eyes. There was no trick in them, no game. Only desperation, fear, and maybe hope. What would happen if I say no? He asked. Then I will run again, she said softly, until I can't run anymore. Ethan stood up and walked to the window. The stars above were starting to appear. He had always liked them. They didn't care about war or politics, they just shined. He thought about the little boy and his cough, the way the girl clung to the drone, the way Narelle looked at them like she'd trade her soul to keep them safe. And then he said, without turning around, I don't know what kind of husband I'll be, but I'll try to be a good man. Neril closed her eyes. Then come here, she said. She walked to the center of the room and knelt. Ethan followed slowly. She opened her hand and showed a small black stone, the bonding stone. She made a tiny cut on her palm and placed the blood on it. Then she passed it to him. Ethan hesitated but did the same. The stone glowed faintly and melted into dust. It was done. Narelle looked at him. We are bonded now. You're not just their protector. You are their family. Ethan felt the weight of her words settle on his shoulders. He wasn't just hiding fugitives now, he was a husband, a father, and maybe a target. But when he looked back at Neril, something changed inside him. He didn't feel scared. He felt ready. That night, as the children curled up beside their mother, Ethan stood watch outside the shelter with a rifle in hand for the first time and years he had something to protect. Not scrap, not machines, but something real, something worth dying for. The battle at dawn. The night was colder than usual. Ethan barely blinked. He stood near the edge of the shelter with his rifle, eyes scanning the dark horizon. Every breeze, every shadow, made him tighten his grip. Inside, Narelle was resting beside the children. Her breathing was calm now. The younger one no longer coughed, in his sleep. The bond had changed something, not just legally, emotionally too. They were connected now, and Ethan knew, if anyone came through that door, they'd have to kill him first. Just before dawn, the wind stopped. That's when he heard it. A soft, metallic crunch. Then another. Footsteps. Ethan ducked low and activated the alarm trigger he had buried in the sand. A dull click responded, silent, but armed. The traps were ready. He watched. 3 figures moved in the distance. Black suits, high-grade cloaks. Not random hunters, professionals. They circled the shelter like wolves. Ethan whispered into the comm bracelet, "They're here." Inside, Narelle woke instantly. She held the children close and activated the back tunnel door. Quiet and hidden, she whispered to the older child, "Take your brother. Crawl. Stay quiet. Do not stop unless I say." The boy nodded. Narelle kissed their foreheads, then turned and grabbed the small plasma dagger hidden in Ethan's toolbox. She wasn't running. She was going to fight too. Outside, Ethan had already fired the first shot. One of the cloaked men dropped, screaming. The others scattered fast. "You want her?" Ethan shouted. "Come take her." A flash bomb exploded near the corner of the shelter. Ethan dove behind a crate, coughing, his ears ringing. The attackers moved fast, too fast. Ethan was cornered until a scream cut through the air. It wasn't Ethan. It was one of the intruders. Narelle had appeared from behind the shelter, moving like lightning. Her blade sliced through the air. She stabbed one of them in the leg. He fell, howling. She didn't stop. But the last man turned, raised his weapon, and fired. A bolt hit Narelle in the side. She dropped. "No," Ethan shouted. He ran to her, fired, again, and hit the last man in the chest. The silence returned. Ethan fell beside her. "Narelle, stay with me." She was bleeding fast. Her eyes fluttered open. "Are the children safe?" she asked. "They're gone through the tunnel," Ethan said. "They're safe, just hold on." She smiled, weak. "I knew you'd protect them." "Don't talk like that," he said. "You're going to make it. I have med packs. You'll be okay." He pressed bandages on the wound. His hands trembled. He couldn't lose her. Not now. Narelle touched his face gently. "I chose right," she whispered. "When I asked you to bond, I saw the fire in you. And I'm not letting that fire die," Ethan said. "Not today." He picked her up and carried her inside. The shelter smelled like smoke and plasma, but it still stood. He laid her down and injected a healing serum into her arm. Minutes passed. Her breathing steadied. She didn't open her eyes. But she was alive. Later, the children returned. The older one had scratches on his knees but carried his brother the whole way. Ethan hugged them both. "She's resting now," he whispered. "But she fought for you. For all of us." That evening, Ethan buried the attackers in the sand. No markers, no names, just silence. And when the sun rose again, the sky turned a deep golden red, a sign of survival, of defiance. Inside the shelter, Narelle finally opened her eyes. "You didn't run," she said. "Not from my family," Ethan replied. She smiled faintly. "Then we truly are one now. A new family under alien skies. 3 suns rose over the horizon, gold, red, and white, spreading warmth across the desert. The wind, once cruel and cold, now felt soft. It was the first quiet morning in many days. Inside the shelter, Ethan brewed hot broth while the children played with scraps on the floor, building something that looked like a tiny house, The younger one giggled for the first time. The older one was no longer afraid to laugh, and on the cot, with bandages across her side, Neril sat up slowly. "You should rest," Ethan said, walking over. "I've rested enough," she replied, her voice low but steady. He placed the bowl in her hands. She looked at it and smiled faintly. "You always bring me something warm." "I try," he said, sitting beside her. She ate quietly, her eyes watching her son's. Then she whispered, "They're healing. Not just their bodies, their hearts." Ethan nodded. "They're safe now, and they know it." She looked at him with gentle eyes. "You gave them something I thought we lost. Hope." There was a pause between them. Then she said, "You didn't just become their protector, Ethan. You became their father. And you became mine too." Ethan blinked. "Yours?" "My anchor," she explained. "The galaxy threw me away. You picked me up." He didn't know what to say. No one had ever said something like that to him before. Outside, the warning. Sensors beeped once, then stopped. Ethan ran to check. A hovercraft was landing at a distance, but it was unarmed. Civilian codes. A woman stepped out. Tall, dressed in diplomatic robes. Ethan grabbed his rifle but stayed calm. The woman approached slowly, her hands raised. "I'm from the Human Alien Council," she said. "We received a message from Neril Kael'thari." Neril stood in the doorway now, one hand on the wall for support. "You finally answered," she said. The woman bowed. "The message carried your blood mark and bonding signature. It forced our council to review your status." "And?" Ethan asked. "Her exile was illegal," the woman said. "The bond overrides the dishonor. She is recognized once more as a free citizen. Her children are protected. And you, Ethan Voss, you are now officially her bonded mate. Her family." Ethan exhaled slowly. Neril stood straighter. "What about those who hunted us?" "They will face charges," the woman said. "Their orders were private and unauthorized." Neril looked at Ethan. Her voice didn't shake anymore. "I never thought justice would find us." "You found it yourself," Ethan said. "I just helped carry it home." Later that afternoon, the diplomatic ship offered to take them to the capital. A clean place, a new home, a real future. But Neril looked at Ethan and shook her head. Not yet. The children had made a tiny house from junk pieces and placed it on the table proudly. "This is our home," the older one said. "We built it together." Ethan smiled. "Then we stay." The council left them with new IDs, medical supplies, and credits for rebuilding. And that evening, Ethan and Neril sat on the roof of the shelter, the boys asleep inside. "Do you ever wonder," she asked, "why you stopped in that rec field that day?" Ethan nodded. "I thought I heard something." "You did," she said. "You heard a soul crying out, and you answered." He chuckled. "I thought I was just saving strangers." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "No, you were saving your own future." The sky above them lit up with stars. The 3 suns dipped below the dunes. In that quiet moment, no warships flew, no alarms screamed, and no fear chased them. Just peace. And under the alien skies, a broken woman, 2 abandoned children, and 1 quiet human man had become something rare. A family.